The story goes back to when I was very young. My parents would let me sleep in the living room on weekend nights, because my younger sister was a light sleeper and I could stay awake until the crack of dawn. I always ended up falling asleep on the couch while watching cartoons. It's a typical Saturday night, and after a few hours of watching cartoons, I fell asleep with the TV on. That's when I started to hear noise. It was coming from outside and towards the front of the house. I bolted into a sitting position and started staring out the front window. I could hear someone walking around out there, stepping on twigs and leaves. After becoming aware of this, I turned off all the lights in the living room and snuck back up to the window to see who was out there. As I started to get a better look, I could see someone begin to hide behind a tree while making more noise. Our family dog must have heard it because he came dashing towards the window and started snarling into the glass. As a young child, I was terrified. I quickly ran into my parents' bedroom, trying to explain to them that there's a strange person lurking outside. We live on the countryside of Georgia, and it's surrounded by trees from every angle of the house. My dad then grabs his shotgun and darts outside to approach the creepy person lurking outside of our house. I remember trembling in my mom's arms until my dad came back, saying that he saw no one and told us to go back to bed. I was pretty creeped out, so I decided to sleep in my regular bedroom after that. I filled my sister in as to what happened. My dad was also making regular rounds outside of the house with a cup of coffee. I started to calm down a little bit and felt like I could go back to sleep again. As I fell asleep, I remember dreaming about what happened that night, and in the dream, all I could begin to hear was tapping coming from a window. I began to feel cold as I abruptly woke up to the sound of tapping glass. My chest had felt like it sank into my stomach, when all I could see was a silhouette of a man's face, looking directly into my room. Whoever was outside then proceeded to say something to which I'll never forget.
Psst, hey, I like watching cartoons too. We should watch them together sometime.
He then gives me a shush signal and slowly creeps away from the window. He disappeared into the night again, and after that, I swear I couldn't stop crying for what felt like hours. The story happened when I was about 14 to 15 years old. I used to skateboard all the time with my friends, Tim and Brandon. On this particular night, we had finished up skating and decided we would go to 7-Eleven to get some drinks, and then walk back home. We bought our drinks and left the store. It was also getting pretty late, around 1 a.m. in the morning. We then leave the store, walking through the parking lot's exit, and prepare to cross the street. It's not a busy street, and we live in a small and quiet suburban town. As we're standing at the intersection waiting for the light to turn red, we notice a man across the street pumping gas into his truck. That's when we noticed that he had been staring at us. We don't know how long for, but we were pretty creeped out by it. We looked back at him for a few seconds and immediately became aware of his unsettling glare towards us. The guy looked like he was in his 40s to 50s. We all began to feel a bit on edge and started hustling back home. As my friends and I are skating down the street, I begin to have chills run throughout my body as I notice that someone in their car has their high beam on us. All I could begin to hear was the sound of a car engine getting progressively louder, so much that it came from directly behind us. We were all in shock when we realized that it was the same creepy man from the gas station. He had tried hitting us with his white truck. Luckily he missed, but he grazed my arm and knocked me off my skateboard. My friend Brandon screamed and swore at the man as he was getting ready to call the police. The man then peeled out and sped into a parking lot next to the 7-Eleven and then started hastily driving towards us again. The guy was driving like he was a maniac. We were being blinded by his high beams as he tried charging after us a second time. We all start to panic and decide that we would make a run for it into the woods, just several feet away from the street that we were on. I looked behind me before escaping into the woods and saw the guy grab what looked like a shotgun or a crowbar from out of his car. I was pretty far away and it was kind of hard to see. I ran for what felt like an eternity on my way back home. When I made it back to my block, the street was flooded with cop cars. Either Tim or Brandon must have made it back before me and had told one of my parents what had transpired. My mom then ran up to me while crying her eyes out because Tim and Brandon said that they didn't know where I went and that they weren't sure if the man had caught up to me or not. Tim told me that they had seen the guy running after me into the woods. Knowing this detail terrified me because I thought it was them that he was chasing after and not me. Unfortunately, the man was never caught, and I spent the next 5 years worrying about any white truck that I would encounter. There's a local CVS not too far away from my house. It's open 24 hours and I usually find myself driving there late at night. Because I always stay up late and I generally have a sweet tooth while playing video games and watching TV. It was the middle of summer. I was up late one night playing Call of Duty, and then my sweet tooth had kicked in a couple of hours later. It's about 3 in the morning and I drive to CVS, buy my snacks, and start to walk back towards my car. As I reach into my pocket to grab my car keys, I look up to see a strange man looking off into the distance, standing under the parking lot light right next to my car. I was pretty sketched out as soon as I laid eyes on him and decided to hurry up and get back inside of my car. As I'm walking towards my car, the man turns his head disturbingly fast and he starts calling for me. I was ignoring him up until he scurried towards me, blocking me from getting into my car. I said to him, "What do you want?" He just stood there staring at me, not saying anything. As I was about to speak again, he interrupted me saying, "My car broke down and I have my pregnant wife waiting for me. Can you please help us?" As I got a better look at the man, he looked like he was homeless and that he was also on drugs. I wasn't buying his story and I said to him, "Sorry man, but I can't help you." He then started begging me that I help him and his wife. The unsettling part of this situation is that he kept looking off into the distance behind me, as if he were waiting for someone to come into the parking lot or something. When I noticed this, I took a glance to see what he was continuously looking at. At this point I was becoming angry and said, "What do you keep looking at? I'm not helping you." That's when I started to feel an unsettling tension. To my complete surprise, the man then started laughing, suddenly stopped, took a slight pause, and whispered, "They're coming." He let out a really big smile as his laughter had turned into obnoxious cackling. I was completely over whatever was going on and pushed the guy out of the way. As I started reaching towards my car door, that's when I feared for my life. I felt a hand grab my ankle from underneath my car, trying to make sure that I couldn't move. The homeless man then put his hands around my neck, attempting to strangle me. Thankfully, I was quickly able to evade him, got inside of my car, and immediately started the engine. I became more disturbed when I witnessed who was hiding underneath my car. It was another man who was about 4 times bigger than me and the other homeless guy. He had a deranged look in his eyes. I then quickly sped out of the parking lot and called the police. Ever since this incident, I tried to avoid going to any store or gas station late at night.